Welcome to Marketing Demystified, the podcast that connects the dots for business leaders to drive revenue through effective marketing strategy. We chat with marketing experts on different topics that will help you ramp up your revenue. We stream live on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, and you can listen to us on your favorite podcast platforms. Marketing Demystified, the podcast, is presented to you by GrowGetter, your partner in growth marketing. And here's today.
Hello, everyone. Are you ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered with actionable tips to transform your marketing game? You're in the right place. Welcome to Marketing Demystified. I'm your host, Jen Mancusi, CEO and co-founder of GrowGetter, your growth marketing partner. Today, we're tackling a challenge many businesses face, how to ensure your marketing actually drives revenue rather than just looking pretty. This is one of my favorite topics, as you know. Today, we're joined by Michael Buzinski, a data-centric marketing expert who's helped over 1,300 businesses overcome growth blockades and dramatically increase their marketing profitability. With more than 30 years of experience, Michael's developed a simple yet powerful frameworks that help B2B service companies, fractional executives, and business consultants scale profitably. His approach cuts through marketing fluff to focus on what truly matters, revenue generation. From helping a CPA firm achieve 8x growth in 2 years to enabling fractional CFO to increase rates by 5x while improving conversion, Michael's results-oriented methodologies have proven successful across diverse industries. I'm so excited to have this conversation today. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Well, thank you very much for the wonderful introduction.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about, right? There's a lot of success that you've had in your career, and you've helped other businesses achieve. So, where to even start, right?
Please not at the beginning. That's so far away.
Maybe not at the beginning, but maybe we can talk about some of the work that you've done and all of your experience working with over 1,300 businesses. What's maybe the most common disconnect you see between marketing activities and revenue generation?
It is the beginning of my next book. It's called Focus. Focus. So many businesses we get into business and we're trying to grab all the business we can. I literally just got off the phone with another marketing firm that has 3 business entities all working against each other technically. And their branding was all under one brand for a long time. And they finally have broken it out. But even in that, their marketing it's segmented. There's no focus on who they are as an entity and what problem they solve. And so I created an acronym, FOCUS, which stands for Fix One Clear Urgent Struggle. And if we could get more entrepreneurs to just focus on focus, they would find themselves much more profitable with a lot more bandwidth and a lot less struggles. Because when we lose focus, it costs us time, energy, and money.
First of all, I love the acronym for focus, but I'm curious your thoughts. Like, is that a marketing problem or is it a business problem, or some combination of the two?
Yes, it's the answer. It becomes a business problem because this is why. And I am one of the worst at this in my life, my entrepreneurial life. In 2005, I started a recording studio. We did one thing. We recorded working musicians. And it quickly came to realize that I couldn't survive off of that. I couldn't thrive. My business the market that I was in wasn't big enough. All the things that I did wrong in starting my business, in not understanding my market, and blah, 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 blah. But with that though, then I started looking at, well, what else can we do with it? Do with the working musician. So we did add other features, right, to the product, right? Only to find out that they couldn't afford the next thing. They could barely afford the recording, right? And so then when we pivoted into small to medium-sized businesses. And in that space, we then became the graphic designer, the web developer, the video production, the audio production, the print shop, all of the things. And what I found, and I see it over and over and over again with other businesses, every time you add a feature to your offering, you increase its complexity. Complexity is inefficient. Complexity creates more need for more people. People are inefficient. So you are now multiplying inefficiencies every time you expand your offering. So it becomes a business problem as much as it becomes a marketing problem, because on the marketing side, now you have more things you have to talk about, which then confuses people, which then creates inefficiencies in your marketing.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. And I'm also like, when you first said sort of like fix one clear urgent struggle, immediately I'm thinking about, your positioning and sort of who your audience is and what you do, what
Mhm.
problem you solve, what urgent struggle
Mhm.
for the customer. But I'm
Mhm.
also wondering, is this sort of like an internal mantra a little bit too, where so often businesses are looking to marketing to fix all of the struggles of the business, the sales struggles, the product struggles, the messaging, the actual marketing struggles. And I see a lot of marketing strategies that are just trying to do a lot of things, maybe without that focus on what's the one thing marketing needs to do that can actually drive impact. How much of this concept of focus is internal versus external, I guess?
Well, it's funny. My whole thing is that, I'm a B2B service-based business. So over the years, we've always tested new marketing strategies and tactics on ourselves. We're like, if it doesn't work for us, it's probably not going to work for most other people, because we're serving the same type of people, businesses serving businesses. And so as much as it has been of a mantra, technically, our theme this year as a company is focus. and and Q1 has been all about alignment. And next quarter will be something else, but it's still wrapped around focus. So it's funny how, like, you see the problem in other people. It does become, if you have the same problem, you're going to see it in yourself, right? And so I think it's a dual sided coin, and with the same solve, the same, what's the word I'm looking for, the same solution, right? And when you ask the question, like, what is the thing, that's when you start you work backwards, right? It's like, what is your problem? And you go, well, why do I have that problem? And so it might be like, I don't have enough leads problem. Okay, why don't you have enough leads? Well, I don't have enough leads because nobody knows I exist. Well, why doesn't everybody know you exist? Nobody knows you exist because I'm stuck working in my business and I can't go out and network. I can't go out and do social media. I don't have the money to buy ads, Well, why don't you have that? Well, I don't have clients to pay for them. So if you don't have clients to pay for them, what are you doing with your time? And why don't you have that time? And that usually comes down to, if you're under $1 million, 9 times out of 10, it's because you're spending too much time doing things that are not driving revenue, because you don't want to do the things that will drive revenue. People don't like to sell. They didn't get into business to sell, most people. And so they do all the other things to avoid doing sales, avoid doing the marketing, avoid being on shows like this to let people know, hey, this is what I'm known for. If you want help, I'm here, right? That's where that focus comes in. You focus on the why, you will figure out what you need to focus on next.
I love that. And that so resonates. Like, people don't want to sell. They don't. It's hard. It doesn't feel right. Like, when I first launched this business, it was like almost a surprise to me that I was I was like, I forgot I was going to have to do that part. I was
Yeah,
thinking
your brain just blocked it out.
totally. And
It's the rejection.
yeah.
Okay, none of us like rejection, right? Great salespeople, they're just impervious to it, right? It's not that they like it; they just they're a duck, water on a duck, right? It just rolls right off their back, and then they just keep on swimming, right? And it's okay. To them, they figured out it's a numbers game and it's not personal, right? If you remember that only 3% of your total addressable market is even in the market for your service or product, you now understand that 97% of the no's has nothing to do with you. If you can get over that, sales becomes a different game. Now it's just a matter of finding the people who want to say yes versus asking everybody that you know or everybody you can Yes or no?
Yeah, that's such a great point. We talk about that all the time. Like, people just aren't in the market to buy you. So a lot of what marketing is building trust and authority along the way when somebody's not in the market to buy. So when they are,
Mm-hmm.
they know about you and they come directly to you because you've added value. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a very different actually marketing motion today than maybe it used to be a few years ago, that you know not to expect a one-to-one correlation between a specific activity and a dollar of revenue right now. There's so much
Mm-hmm.
more trust building and relationship building that has to happen in
Mm-hmm.
the B2B space maybe than ever before, because
100%.
it's so much more crowded than it ever was before.
It's more crowded. The thing is this is that, I mean, before technology, a B2B was very time consuming, right?
Mm,
And when you're talking about B2B sales, you're talking sometimes anywhere between 30 or I'm sorry, 90 to 180 days. Some of my clients deal with 24-month sales cycles.
mhm,
And so when we talk about sales, it's like the thing that we don't want to do. Now we're forced to do it all the time in the struggle of a long game versus a short game. But now with technology, we have ways of nurturing those relationships predictably with automation,
mhm,
right? And that helps us be in more places without having to be in more places,
mhm.
and that helps us along the way. I just got an email right before I came online here from a gentleman that I talked to almost 2 years ago extensively for about 90 days. And I had follow-up calls with him for a total of 6 months before we just realized he's just not in the market, right? He kept saying he was in the market, but his actions were opposite of that. I just got
Mhm.
an email from that person. And in the first line, we have just set aside a large sum of money for the campaign we've talked about. We're ready to have the call.
Mhm.
That is a long game.
Yes. And that
2
is the
years,
best email to get.
right?
The one that you've not been actively working, right? Or you've
Yeah,
just
18 months later, right? You're like,
starting. Yeah.
wow, that's the last no was just not right now.
Yeah.
And if people realize that, if you've connected with the right people, I have so everybody talks about their ICP, right? Their ideal client profile,
Yes.
which is an awesome place to start. But once you've been in business for a minute and you start understanding who your perfectly profitable prospect profile or the P3P is, you will not only understand whether or not that no means no, not right now, versus no, we're just not a good fit for you.
Mhm.
And with a P3P, you can start actually telling prospects no because they're not the right fit.
Yes.
And you get the toxicity out of your business, not by not letting it in the first place.
Right.
Setting policies that tell your new clients in your agreements, this is the code of conduct. If it's anything other than this, you will get fired.
Sure.
You need me, not the other way around. You're paying your money and your time to work with me because you have the problem, not me. I'm the helper.
Hmm.
Don't bite the hand that's helping you.
Right.
If you do, they're going to stop helping. I just had to fire a client this week.
Yeah.
They didn't pay their bills and they complained about everything. You're a toxic client. You got to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You have the power. It is your business. You can say no.
Yes. Totally. Totally. I think a lot of people don't feel like they can. It's like, how much is the dollar worth? But
Your time is worth 10 times more than every dollar that you could bring in.
yeah, that's
Because what are you sacrificing when you say yes? Anytime you say yes, whether it's a good yes or no, not, you're saying no to something else. So
mm-hmm.
great yeses are saying no to bad yeses, right? And bad yeses are forcing you to say no to good clients.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you want a roster of great clients or do you want money in the bank? Because
Well,
I'm telling you, if you go through door A, guess what? You're going to get both. But
Yeah.
people focus on the dollar versus their time,
Yeah.
their energy, right? If you put your energy and time in the right things, money will never be a question in your business. Believe me, I chased the dollar for 13 years, lived in entrepreneurial poverty at a multi-million-dollar creative agency, and I wasn't even making six figures. Okay. You know what I did when I rebranded my company 6 years ago and started focusing on what I really wanted to do in marketing by saying no to all the things that weren't even making me money anymore, right? I started saying yes to the right things and saying no to the wrong things. The money just takes care of itself because you focus on the things that, one, you're really good at, and two, you're really passionate about with people you really like. You put those three things together, profit's not the issue.
Right. Right. Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah, I think that the culture piece of it, of like good fit, is just as important as what's on paper of what makes somebody a good fit. And so I love that P3P idea, and sort of looking at that perfectly profitable client as opposed to the ideal, and I think too, even the concept of ICP, I've got other opinions about, and it's important. Right, but like,
Yeah, we can start talking avatars and all the other cliche things that people start looking into their marketing messaging.
right.
And it's funny because, when I came up with the P3P, it had to do with focus. It was another focus piece, right? Like, who are we going to focus our time on? And when people have a lot of features and they're like, well, I was just talking to a marketing director for a fractional CFO, and they keep talking about adding bookkeeping because they want to expand their services. I was like, do you want to be known as a bookkeeper that does fractional or a fractional that does bookkeeping? And he goes, actually, neither one of those sounds good, does it? I said, it doesn't. There's a cognitive dissonance between the two. One is a worker and one is a strategist. They should not be in the same conversation. And then he goes and he continued to tell me, he's like, listen, we haven't even been able to put it as an add-on because you're having two different conversations. Are you having a tactical conversation or are you having a strategy conversation? The brain can only focus on one at a time. That's why there are strategy firms like mine and tactical firms like others. Right? So when you talk to somebody who's, say, doing pay-per-click search engine or search engine optimization, okay, in pay-per-click, you're talking about getting people to click for a certain amount of money. There's strategy behind it, but why are you even doing it? Well, PPC is a tactic that belongs under an overarching strategy.
Yeah.
So if your strategy is to not be on the call with complaining clients all the time, that pay their bills on time without question, and appreciate and by not arguing with your guidance, how much better is that than some avatar of, well, they have this pain and dot, dot, dot. It comes down to culture. You said the perfect word, and I use it all the time, is culture. If you could pit your culture statements against your clients just as much as you do with your own people and your vendors, now you've taken all cognitive dissonance out of your company all the way around. 360. Everybody's on the same page. And guess what? There is enough business for you to be that discerning.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. We've gone like a completely different direction than where I thought we were going to go with this conversation, but I love it. And I totally agree.
I told you this is going to happen.
I know, we just said this before the call. This is exactly what was going to happen, but it's all good. And maybe some of the stuff we've touched on organically, but you talk a lot about this concept of identifying growth blockades and, figuring out what's sort of keeping you from your revenue goals. What are some of those typical blockades that you see, and how can, businesses identify them and maybe start to remove them?
So I have another acronym called the five. It's the 5 keys to B2B marketing. And they're for pretty much any marketing. And 5 is the acronym FIVE. And there are 5 keys still, though there's 4 letters. The first one is focus, which we've already talked about. The second one is I, which is the 2 sides of the identity coin. And big blockade comes from, well, when you don't have the focus. Once you have the focus, now it's like, okay, what's my identity, right? And from that identity, you have what you project out as what you think people need to see and what people perceive. And so you have this 2 sides of the coin. And I look at it like a two-way mirror, right? You see you, but you can't see them seeing you. And you see a reflection of you, which is a 180 perception versus they're seeing you dead on. Your right is their left. When you're looking at it, your right is your right,
Mm.
right? And so when we look at that and we say, okay, I'm saying this, but and nobody's saying yes back, there is a disconnect between theirs, and that creates that blockade because you're saying all the things you think you should be saying versus all the things that they want to hear. And that comes from, I'll do a quick exercise. I call it the we, us versus I. Okay. I and we, sorry, I, we. Okay. If you go to your website right now and you have more I's and we's than you and you have an identity issue because it's not about you. I don't care. I don't have on my website, it's all you and your because I'm talking to my prospects' problems. I'm here to solve your problem. In B2B, service-based businesses only do one thing. They solve other businesses' problems. That's it. I don't care if you have a product or a service, you do one thing. You sell one thing, a solution to a problem. Okay. And that problem usually has to do with time, energy, or money. Period in a story. Okay. So if you can identify their problem and start talking to them in their space and then connect with that pain or the fear or whatever's driving them to look for help with it, you're going to connect with more people than if you go, hey, I'm this and I'm this and that. They don't care who you are. What is the saying? That nobody cares what you know until they know you care. I think I said that one right. Right. Okay. So the second one. So once you have that you've proven that you have a good identity balance between what you're projecting and what people are seeing, right? And that's congruent. The V is visibility. Visibility is one of the biggest blockades of all small to medium-sized businesses. And it's not because they don't have the money to go get their name out in a bunch of front of people. It's that all of their efforts, time, energy, and money go to being in front of the wrong people at the wrong time. Sometimes they get in right people and they're in the wrong time. And then they don't have any way to stay visible to those people. So then they waste their time, energy, and money because there's no follow-up, there's no nurture, there's none of that stuff. And that comes back to the last of the five, which is E, which is effectiveness. And effectiveness is a blockade of effectiveness comes from not evaluating how things are working. Right? So once you understand the 5 keys to your marketing and how they're creating blockades when they're not being met, marketing becomes really easy. Yeah. I should say simple. It's never easy. It's really simple.
Yeah, that's a good distinction actually, because it's never easy because it's
never easy
every day, but at least there's a framework for figuring it out.
Right.
Which is half the battle.
Right.
And I could sit in that identity space that you talked about for hours in conversation. I think it's so, so critical and often something that people skip. Right. You know, they don't even realize they're skipping it. They just are putting up a website about all the things we do. Let me tell you all about our features and functionality, and nobody cares. Right. And that's a really hard thing to kind of wrap your head around. But what you said about the perception and sort of like we're projecting this one thing and people are seeing it differently. You know, I always like to talk about, I think it's a Donald Miller thing, the concept of the curse of knowledge, right?
Sure.
Where you know so much about your own business that you talked about this earlier in the conversation, the complexity causes confusion from a marketing perspective. So you've got all this information about all the things we do and you try to tell everybody all the things that you do. And people are like, I don't get it. I'm not buying at that 10. I'm buying at like, you got to simplify it down to like a 2. And that 2 is what's in it for me. How are you solving my problem? Like, or not even how, are you solving my problem? If you convince me that you're going to, then maybe I'll ask you how later.
Right.
Don't need that right away. And I just think that's such an important, it's such a critical step. And I just think people get it wrong so often. And it's so hard to not talk about your incredible product or your incredible services. Everybody's so proud of what they do and how it's different, but it's just
But you can go back to StoryBrand and when he talks about that, he talks about the fact that you're the guide, not the hero. The hero is the client.
Yes.
So when you talk about yourself, You now put them as the bystander.
Right.
They become the Robin of the Batman.
Yeah.
Right? And nobody wants to wear those funky shorts and the tights, right? Just not there's like and
Which
green
hero?
and red just shouldn't be a thing unless it's Christmas. I mean, it's just the way it goes, right? So if you put yourself as a hero to your clients, your identity as a hero is pushing people away.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I see is that you make this personification that basically creates a bubble around you. Oh, I'm not worthy of working with that person. You have to become personable. You have to be human because you're helping humans with something that they're struggling with. Struggle is considered a weakness. Weakness is something we don't like sharing in business. When you talk to somebody who's in business, what do they always say? Like, hey, how's business? What do they
Great.
say?
It's great.
It's awesome. In the
It's so
background,
great.
they're like, man, I just lost my key account. I have no freaking leads in the funnel.
Yeah.
My website sucks, blah, blah, blah. You know, they got all the things, right? My key person in fulfillment is gone, blah, 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 right? So when we're talking about being honest, what you're trying to do is help them be honest with themselves and that you're there to guide them through the process. Alan Dibb wrote a book called The Dip. And it's a short book, easy, and it's a great reminder of what makes successful business successful and successful people successful. And he talks about saying no a lot, right? But he says, like, when you start your business, it's like it's all new, it's all exciting, da 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 da, and then you get into the dip, which is the drudge of doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And the people, when he uses the analogy of like a CEO, it's like CEOs are not just born overnight. They've got 20 years of being in the drudge because CEO is actually an easier job than all the other jobs, technically. But that's because you've been doing it for 20 years. If I went and tried to bike up a mountain against somebody who is a professional bicyclist, it's going to be a lot easier. It's a lot simpler for them because it's there. It's like, I do this every day. And I'm sitting there going, oh, last time I was on a bike for this long, it's like, da, da, da. So, we need to make sure that we understand that the riches are not just in the niches, riches in the niches, however that goes. But it is also in the consistency of business. And this is what happens with our focus. We lose focus when we think it's just running itself. And if you don't have somebody over that, keeping the same focus that you started with, and you're not one to stay focused like myself, I'm a great builder. I hate maintaining anything, right? But that's why I hire people to maintain things for me, right? I don't work on my own car because I suck at maintaining cars. I give it to a mechanic, right? And you need to do the same thing in your business. And that's why marketers will never go away, because a lot of marketing is saying the same thing over and over. And to you, it becomes boring. Right. And you're like, I got to freshen it up. Except there are millions of people who haven't heard that message that'll get just as excited as the day that you created it for yourself.
Yeah. That is such a common challenge that I see, whether I've been sort of in-house, a junior marketer earlier in my career, leadership is like, we already said that thing, right? Like, or now, like my whole career, I've heard that, mostly from non-marketers. I think marketers tend to get it, right? We know that the consistency and the repeating, like people need to hear it 3 times before it even sticks in their brain. We have to say the same thing over and over again. Not everybody's going to see your message every time. That's why we have all these different channels and we have to maintain consistency. We get
16 times now.
16 times they have to
because they got 3,000 marketing messages stuffed into their ear and their eyes every single day.
Yes. Yes. And that's like in B2B, it's even more complex, right? Because you're getting the B2C messages, the skincare and the clothes and the jewelry and whatever on Instagram, and you're getting the tech, right? This new AI platform and this new video thing and this new, I'm getting it constantly, and that's just on Instagram alone, let's say.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So it is so
LinkedIn
much.
is no different. I mean, you go to LinkedIn now, everybody's just talking about how they can help you. I can help you here. I can help you there. And it's like, okay, well, where's my focus?
Yeah. And, a lot of our listeners on the show are non-marketers who are being tasked with marketing activities, marketing strategy, marketing, driving marketing growth or business growth in some way. So a lot of, CEOs of small businesses who don't yet have an internal marketing team, or CROs who are responsible for marketing, but don't have that experience of, maybe you're a CEO and you've been in the trenches for 20 years in a different function, right? And don't necessarily have that marketing expertise. Like, how do you suggest they kind of look at their marketing approach and shift from these like sort of activity based, like throwing things at the wall and changing the message constantly, to an approach that's really results driven, especially if you're maybe not necessarily a marketer throughout your entire career?
Sure. It comes back to focus. I sound like a broken record player, but that's just
You're
the way it goes.
consistent.
Like, if you can just answer that one question and you make and you take all of the rest that we were talking about, your identity, your visibility, and your effectiveness around that one focus, and you're able to create a message around it. And all it is a statement, right? You go, here's the one clear, urgent struggle that who has, right? Who do you serve? Right? I serve. So for me, it's professional service-based business, B2B professional service-based businesses. And what do? I create predictably profitable marketing. Why? Because the biggest problem that most people come to me with is I'm spending money on marketing and I'm not getting anything back. So their clear struggle is getting their marketing to be profitable. So my statement is creating predictably profitable marketing for something very specific, B2B professional service providers. If you can do that right there, you don't have to be a genius marketer if you're in your first million, right? Because in your first million, it's all about networking and connecting, right? And most of us, I don't know what the number is, but I bet you it's 97% of us are founder-led sales. It's our relationships, our joint ventures, our referral partners, our word of mouth of us going out there and being passionate about what we do and how well we do it that gets us to $1 million. So if you just test that one statement with people that meet that criteria and you start getting they start leaning in. If they don't lean in and they're meeting what you would consider your ICP, because that's what we're going to start with, it's your ICP, and you're not getting that lean in, you got to tweak it a little bit. Maybe you're not focused enough on maybe the struggle is different, because we have to remember that a struggle is a successor of the previous struggle. It's also the predicator of the next struggle. So when we solve a problem, we create the next problem in business, right? And so if you're a guide who can help solve multiple problems, that's great. But you have to figure out which problem that most people have in your niche for your service. And you go, where does that problem start? Because sometimes you have to go back a couple problems before you can actually sell the solution to the problem that you want to solve. Because so for me, a lot of times it is their focus. So I can talk about focus, but really I have to sell the outcome. The outcome is predictably profitable marketing. And so they buy that, but what do I give them? Focus.
I think that's so interesting that, when we like talk about the topic today, right? The topic today is like predictably profitable marketing, right?
Right.
The answer to that is not like tactical, do this thing and get this. This is the best channel. Here's the best tactic that you're going to get the highest ROI. The answer to that is understanding your customers. Right? It is being customer centric, understanding what problems you solve for them. And like you were saying, the previous problem, the next problem, when you talked about focus, you didn't say like, fix one struggle,
Right.
a clear, urgent struggle. Where does this problem rank on their list of problems? Because guess what? We've all got a ton of them. So if it's like that's a problem I have, but actually I've got these other 10 that I need to solve first, then that's not right either. But it's all about understanding those problems, not guessing what they are, truly understanding them, and then speaking to how you solve them for those customers where, it's so much easier to just talk about what you do. It's a lot harder to talk to customers, find out their clear, urgent struggle, and then solve it for them.
Right.
But again, this conversation, this profitable marketing, predictably profitable marketing is not about here's an ad tactic for you, or an email strategy for you to try.
Yeah.
It's about understanding your customers, which I think is super powerful.
Strategy first. It's one of the things that has propelled our clients so much better than our competitors is that we won't even work with somebody who does not want to look at their strategy. If somebody says, yeah, Buzz, I know that you've been doing SEO for 17 years, right? It's just one of the tactics that we have in our back pocket. We don't start there at all. You can go to my website and we barely even mention that we do it. You got to go deep into our website to figure out that we have that as a service, because we're strategy first, because sound strategy beats blind tactics every time. And so when people are seeing those ads that says, hey, I've got this tactic that will help you, blah, 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 you go, great, I'm going to put a pin in that. And the next time I go and look at my strategy, I'm going to go look at all the other once I have a strategy, I can look at all the tactics and say, what tactics fit into our strategy? Not the other way around, guys. When you start with tactics, you are now testing, you were talking about it earlier, you're throwing spaghetti onto the wall and seeing what sticks. When you use strategy, you now know whether or not you're even supposed to be throwing noodles.
Yeah. Maybe maybe you should throw something else.
Right. Maybe we should be throwing like stickums.
Maybe it's silly string, or it's silly string
Yeah,
this time. And
exactly.
if we're
Like,
not tracking it, we won't know. You mentioned this too, the effectiveness, right? Do you have a method for tracking what's effective? Because what's effective for you is not what's effective for me, and vice versa. And that's okay.
yeah.
There may be some core principles of marketing that stand, right? But
Right.
when it
Your
comes
core principle, the principles are there, but who you're trying, if you're truly building a scalable business, you have a very finite problem that you solve for a finite audience. Okay. If you start past that, and believe me, I've lived through not starting there. And if I had 20 years to go back and say, hey, Buzz, maybe we should just do this one thing for like the next 5 years. And then we can talk about more, right? And 9 times out of 10, it's 3 years. Like the very successful people, the people who are sitting there going, I made my first million within the first 3 years of starting my business, and I started from zero. Those are the people who had one thing for one audience. Those 2 ingredients right there is all they focused on. And so everything built around that, right? Your great software companies are the same way. If you get the ones that are like the one size fits all, blah, 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 they move so much slower or cost 10 times more, 100 times more to get some traction on than the people who go, we solved this one thing. Calendly, Zoom.
Yeah.
I mean, I can give you 100 of them that you already use day to day. These are billion-dollar companies because they do one thing. And they spent 3 years to 5 years doing that one thing before they started adding to it.
Yeah.
And then as you see them add, Amazon's perfect. They sold books out of his garage, and he did it for a while. And even when it got big, he didn't go to other things until he had done it long enough to go, oh, I can use the same technology to then sell these things. And then all the other things you start seeing him do is because he's testing product market fit for other things. They're behind AWS. People don't even know that Amazon has a huge sector of cloud computing and cloud storage, right? Why did they have that? Because they have the infrastructure to do it. Why do they have the infrastructure to do it? Because they did one thing really well for not long enough to where they amassed the market and they owned the market. Now you own the market. If you can own your niche, man, I'm about to here next month. That's one of the things we're talking about is like owning a category of one. Can you do that with your business? Yes.
Yeah.
Will you? Probably not. And I'm sorry. Just the way it is.
Yeah, it's so true. But you're right. The businesses that are the most successful. And what's interesting is that sometimes it's not that you're just doing one thing, but that's the thing that you're focusing on from a positioning and messaging standpoint.
Yes.
I had a CFO at an old company that I worked for who used to always talk about nailing the niche, which was from a book that you may be familiar with. And it made us crazy, like nail the niche. But it was so true, like to just focus on this one little thing. And I recognize it now out in the universe where I see businesses where once you get in and start like maybe doing a demo on the tech or go through the discovery process with their salespeople, you're like, wait a second, you're adding way more value than what you're positioning here. I know that you were promoting this for salespeople, but marketers are going to get a ton of value out of this. Why aren't you promoting this to marketers? Because they're nailing the niche. They don't want to confuse the market. Like we're for sales and we're for marketing and we're for customer success. No, we're just for sales. The other people will discover it on their own.
Right.
If it's really a good fit. But really, like, it doesn't necessarily mean you can only actually do one thing.
Sure.
There's probably
But you got to solve that one problem first.
That's right. Yes.
Then you create the next problem and then you solve that one. And that might be a different product. And then you solve that problem with another product with the next product or the next problem. And it goes out there. And it's the pinpoint effect. If you ever like played with photography, when we were kids, we had like shoebox cameras, right? And you put like one little pinhole on this side, and inside there was a photosensitive piece of paper on the backside, and you sat there and you uncovered it for a certain amount of time, and then you came back. And when you came back, all the piece of paper on the back end of that, from that one pinhole, was filled in with the picture of whatever the landscape was in front of it. That's your marketing. If you can find the pinhole that then expands to the full picture, you will have great retention. You will be able to expand upon your services with the people who have already bought in, which will be 7 times to 10 times less money than trying to sell all that the entire picture to everybody on the street.
That's a great approach. For sure. Like, yeah, start with that one thing. I love the analogy of the pinhole picture. Like, that's a great way to look at it. And, I think that's a great place to end the conversation. Like, that's a great approach. I hope everybody like listens to that. I think what you just said a moment ago, a lot of people won't. And that kind of stinks, but I hope that
if you'd like help not doing it, contact one of us. Because we'll help you get that focus. Both of us are very good marketers are going to sell you what you want and give you what you need. Okay. So whatever you're looking for and what they want, what you want, but if they get into your kickoff meeting and they don't start showing you what you actually need, you might, get that clear in the sales process when you're hiring for marketing. But yes, the pinhole effect is where the most people miss. And that's why you have what is a 75% fail rate in the first 3 years of businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I love what you shared today, and the focus, I think, is so critical. It's where we started. I think it's a great place to end, and so important. And I know I'm taking a lot away from this conversation. So thank you so much for joining, Michael, and sharing all of the insights. Loved it. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to Marketing Demystified wherever you get your podcasts, and join us next time for more